It's time for us to talk about something very, very, very important for the future and, in my opinion, the healthy state of Wuthering Waves. And that is the issue with Whimpering Wastes and, of course, HP inflation. As you can see from my YouTube track record over here, in just the past 2 days, I've already uploaded 2 videos about Whimpering Wastes and how the game mode has become very, very, very unachievable for the wide majority of the player base because of something along the lines of super specific tokens, HP inflation, and generally a lot of the stuff in gacha games that players don't like seeing unless they're willing to spend a lot of money on the game. And so the track record of mine is I went ahead and I gave a try to the most recent 2.5 WeWa reset, and I was like, man, the Frolova team feels really good, but now I'm having some struggle with some other lineups. And then over here, I did an investigation where I went ahead and in this video, tested out a bunch of teams with and without tokens, tested out prior tier 0 units, and then came to the end result of, damn, I'm getting a B. I got a 3910 using Gian and Camellia, 2 tier 0 units that used to be widely considered the best ones to use in this game mode. And so, we talked about all of this stuff, and I've gotten a lot of feedback that the game mode has become one of the most difficult things, if not impossible things for a lot of players to do in the game. And somebody's done some digging. Somebody in CN has actually looked at the data, they've looked at the analytics, and found out, and thanks to Axel, one of my mods on Discord, they found out that the HP resistances, all of that stuff has gone up significantly. Let's just go ahead and take a look at the breakdown. Just in the 1 cost waves, by 1C waves, what they're talking about is in Whimpering Wastes, Infinite Torrents, you'll have multiple waves of enemies, right? By 1 cost waves, they're referring to the Nimbus Wraiths over here and the Lottie Lost over here. These are typically enemies that you will kill in 1 attack, right? 1 big nuke, you'll hit all of them, and then they'll typically disappear, and then the next wave will spawn. Taking a long amount of time on these 1 cost waves is one of the worst things that can happen to your clear, because you need to kill all of the enemies in a 1 cost wave for the next one to spawn. And, well, if you don't end up finishing it off, then it's the same as, like, not even killing any of them anyways. And so, they've gone ahead and they've seen that the HP of the 1 cost waves has gone from 84,000 to 148,000. And some specific enemies, right, like giant mushrooms, had their HP increased from 170,000 all the way to 328,000. And the resistances, right, how much damage these enemies are reducing from when they get hit, have went up by 10%. From all resistances and 40% resistance to what they're resistant to 2050. And so, these enemies over here, right, used to be 40% resistant to Glacio. Now they're 50% resistant to Glacio. They used to be 10% resistant to all other attributes. Now they're 20% to all other attributes. And so, there's been a tankiness increase on not just one side of the HP, but there's been a tankiness increase on how much damage they're actually taking as well. And this is all just based on in-game testing with no data mining involved. And here's a little bit about what it looks like. You can see that my Camellia over here just tossed in an ephemeral, one of the biggest nukes in Camellia's kit. And when you use ephemeral on Camellia, you typically expect to one-shot an entire wave of 1 costs. Look at this. They're left alive after taking 170,000 damage. They still have some HP left, so the next wave can't spawn. And on this guy, I didn't crit. And on this guy, I didn't crit over here. Non-crits with Ephemeral, the biggest nuke in Camellia's kit, are dealing around 1/3 of a small mob's HP. And remember what I said before, right? You got to clear all the enemies in 1 wave for the next one to spawn. Who cares about the big damage that I did? I still need to attack the same amount of time because I need to kill all of both of these small ones that are going to be left over before I can even move on to the next wave anyways. And so you can see over here where a lot of the issues with this game mode are forming. And the unfortunate part about the matter is that it seems like the player base is split on how to feel about all of it. I would say that when it comes to global, right, and then when it comes to basically any region outside of CN, people don't like power creep, right? People typically don't like when it feels like the newest characters are like overly shilled. They don't like when there are like tokens, buffs, all of that stuff, like the stuff we're seeing over here that's clearly designed to sell the newest units and then make them feel like the only options that you can use. And unfortunately, in this game mode right now, the current situation is because the HP and the resistances have actually gone up this much and the enemies are taking this little damage and taking this long to kill, to the point where this is like the end result of the situation. You kind of need the gold tokens or top 3 to 4% gameplay. Super sweaty quick swap rotations, all of that. You either need the gold tokens or super sweaty rotations that most players are not going to be able to do. And then you're also, and this is the worst part, worrying about crit fishing and RNG to even get your clears in the first place. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just about being super sweaty, having the damage, so on and so forth. You also have to ensure and be lucky enough to not deal with this split damage of crit and not critting on all of your rotations. Because if this happens too many times and you spend too much time, right, picking up for the fact that you missed a crit and are dealing no damage, then you're going to lose a shit ton of time that way anyways. For all these people saying that they're clearing it free to play, for all the people saying that like, oh, I got a 3K score using my Camellia team, they had to retry this 20 times maybe to ensure that this situation that we're seeing over here with the split HP isn't occurring too many times in their clear, because this alone can prevent you from actually getting even a score of like 2,500 if it happens too often. And the unfortunate part about this matter, right, is that this is the way that Global feels. They don't really like this whole pay to win stuff, but it appears that it's different in CN. This is what some CN people on Twitter have been talking about when it comes to the update. I see some people complaining about power creep and waste. Lamau, no money, no skill, no time, but want to get all rewards with no pressure. Go eat shit, idiots. Take a look on how normal people truly solve the matter. Milk, lightning, still working. You can tell by the poor translation and the fact that half of this shit doesn't make any sense that this is probably somebody from CN. And you can see over here, right? They're kind of like in the situation where they're unfortunately blaming the player. They are blaming the individual who's on the receiving end of some really unfortunate updates by the devs that have turned teams that used to clear into teams that are no longer clearing. I would use these exact same teams with the exact same tokens on prior WeWa resets, and I would get scores of around 6,000 to 7,000. And now I'm going ahead, and those scores have been close to cut in half, using the same exact teams with the same exact playstyle. And instead of being like, oh, clearly the difficulty has gone overboard and now we're a little bit overtuned, we have people in CN saying, oh, just spend more, just play more. Why do you want all these rewards for free without putting in any of the work? People have already put in the work, and now you're increasing the work, spending, skill, blah, 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 all that stuff required. And the thing is, when there's not really a good reason for it, and there's not really like a track record for having this kind of difficulty increase, it's not announced, it just comes out of nowhere, and now you're basically telling people that, oh, this content that you've been able to do in the past, you can't do it anymore, and it's your fault that you can't do it. I feel like that's just naturally not going to make a lot of people very happy. And the worst part about all of this is that this is the same exact behavior that we've seen in other gacha games. You can just look at the global side of Genshin Impact, the global side of Zenless Zone Zero, the global side of power creep. This mindset that you gotta play better, oh, they want rewards with no pressure, oh, they're just being pussies, all of this. This is the mindset of global Hoyo games, of Hoyo and EN. This Wuthering Waves is like the one game that across this public community is like adamantly against power creep. This is why gacha tribalism can actually be good, because a chip on the shoulder of the Wuthering Waves community, at least in global, is the fact that they hadn't had as much power creep, as much HP inflation, as much like predatory endgame mechanics as the other games. And that's what they would brag about, because it's actually good for the players. It's actually something that's good for the space, and it's something that other devs aren't doing. And to see Kuro Games go ahead and institute some of this, not have it called out in CN, and actually even supported with like silly memes and like Venn diagrams, is some of the most unfortunate stuff ever. Because, well, a lot of people have like theories and ideas that devs listen to CN more. And if this is a case in Wuthering Waves where they listen to CN more, and then this is kind of like the public sort of perception across CN, that's really unfortunate. Somebody has found a post on a forum in, I believe, Taiwan. And so we'll just go ahead, translate it to English, and see what some of the people are saying. This is talking about the Weewa reset. You can see here stuff like diffraction, conductive, blah, 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 all of that stuff, maritime characteristics. Yeah, it's like Weewas in an ocean. People are voting on the scores that they got. I want to see if I can participate because I technically... Oh, that's unfortunate. Can I just see the results? Damn, I wish I could see the results. Anyways, let's see what the comments for some people in CN are beyond just, right, this very public thing that we've seen on the global side. To be honest, there are so many damage differences between the tokens, and in addition to getting beaten up, the monsters will also separate themselves. From the beginning, the gameplay design was quite bad. Okay, so we do have some critiques. The problem is the tokens are too specialized. And then we see somebody over here referencing that chart that we just looked at. I have only been playing this training for a year. Most of the others who have reached the standard of around 17 to 20 have returned water with 4 to... Okay, so I assume that they're not getting as good of a score as they've gotten before. Yeah, the translation's a little bit fucked up here. That video, the second half just wants to show the same configuration as before and can be played high. Compare the current performance and just show how much harder stuff has gotten. So we do see that there are some people shilling and then some people actually talking about the issues. And so based off of this, right, we might have to like balance our point of view on the entire matter because there probably are some very, very vocal people, some elitists in the CN community that just want, you know, certain situations to be very unattainable for other players. You see it all the time in other gacha games, but it does look like there are some reasonable people as well. And we've even got like more charts over here showing the damage required to get like certain, I believe, like scores or clear times in the game mode. And you've seen that even at like a baseline, it's going up and then it's going way higher. Assuming that I read this chart correctly, CN people in my chat. Saint from the future here. It actually turns out that a viewer went ahead and translated that entire chart for me that I was going ahead and guessing off of. So the data on here is going to be the Weewa top half, first wave and second wave HP for both 3 costs and the 1 costs, with the 1 cost actually showing up in the blue line over here and the 3 costs showing up in the red line. And then you'll be able to see, right, how the HP has been elevating every single reset. You see that 121%, that 88%, so on and so forth, to the point where, you know, we're suffering right now in the current version of the game. And so HP is calculated by factoring in 10% of the enemy's resistance. It's calculated by going ahead and killing each wave one by one and then adding together the total HP value of all of the mobs. And so you can go ahead and see this is the TOA 1-year HP inflation, 33.6%, and this is where Weewa is at. And you can tell that the difference is pretty significant. We're currently at what appears to be the 6th reset right now, and potentially, it could be slated to be worse. So I'm not really sure what's showing up on the 7th reset over here. Those numbers might just be some guesses, but the 6th reset, essentially, is where that resistance change is occurring. That's all the data on this chart. That's the explanation. Now, let's get back to the video. Current vote result? Yeah. And so, as you can see, right, these are the vote results of the people talking about the scores. You can see in CN, it's either you have a really high score or you're not clearing. It's one or the other. You either have a really, really, really fucking high score because you're probably like whaling or you're a super sweaty player, or you're in the situation where not really clearing. And so this one is, in this period, I felt that it was too hard. Solon, please call me. In this period, I felt the water temperature was rising and it was quite difficult, but it was still okay. And then we have, I didn't care at all. I didn't notice any power creep. There's no issues. And you can see over here, most people, even when they're getting high scores, are at least saying, Solon, this is too much. So I think it's time to do a bit of a wrap up on this situation. Based off of what we've seen in CN communities, it appears that there's a mixed perspective on Whimpering Wastes moving forward. There are some people naturally, right, that are going to go onto the global side and use this as a chip on their shoulder to say that CN's better and start bragging about how everybody else is lazy, dog shit at the game, needs to spend more. There are people that are going to post the memes, but there's at least a sensible side to CN that is abundantly voting for specific things, specific options over here that are just outright saying things like, in this period, the water temperature, basically they're saying the difficulty was rising too high and it was too hard to hit. Solon, please call me. And that's the majority one that we're seeing over here. Thankfully, it appears that there might be something that's done. It appears that CN does have a pretty balanced perspective on the matter. So don't read too much into what's going on over here because this is just one guy with one opinion. I think there's a lot more that actually is being brought to the table over here for this discussion. I think we should just all be adamant about the fact that these numbers, this sort of stat inflation, this sort of difficulty increase, it has to be accompanied by either changes in the token system where you're going to make it so that more teams can go ahead and actually utilize these tokens instead of making them super character specific, or you bring the fucking HP and resistances down. You gotta do one or the other. You can't just go ahead and just not institute any wide sweeping general updates while having close to 100% HP inflation for this reset. That'll be it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad that we got the data, or I'm glad that we got the results from in-game testing. Like I've said before, right? You can see how much the HP has gone up for the one cost, 148k to 180k, and then my 170k ephemeral is not one-shotting the enemies. Guys, these small mobs used to have 8400 HP, and now in this reset, they have more than double that. It's over 100% HP inflation. I know we want to sell for Lova. I know whoever designed this Whimpering Waste reset, right, really wants to sell this character because she's incredibly good in Whimpering Waste. I would say close to even potentially overpowered due to how her kit works in Whimpering Waste. But we don't need to fuck over every other player. And honestly, you still get fucked in this reset because you can only use Frolova on one side. And so you still get fucked on the other side if you don't have one of the crazy good teams. It's too much. It's legitimately too much. And I'm saying this as somebody who got a score of 8,000. Okay? I have one of the highest possible scores in this reset. It doesn't get much higher than this. And I am telling you that there are some big fucking problems. And we gotta put our foot down as a community, send in the feedback, let people know that this is pretty much just like unacceptable levels of difficulty spikes, especially when we know how good the on-banner character is in this game mode. That'll be that, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully this overview, this breakdown, this kind of like different perspective from other regions was helpful. Let me know what you all think. Peace.